Next bit of content that we're going to be reacting to, it is a Space Tomato video. It's titled How Star Citizen Aims to Beat Griefing and Allow for Piracy. Now, I don't know if you guys have known this about Space Tomato, but some of the stuff that he does on his channel, he actually goes and deep dives into old bloody design docs and information, like old information about stuff that Chris Roberts had talked about, or like design docs that have been released on the RSI website. He goes and digs them up, goes through them to find out information that may point towards things that CIG has said in the past that they're actually looking at implementing now. He's one of the very few content creators actually doing this that I know of. So he's not regurgitating the most recent stuff. He's actually looking into things that CIG has said in the past. And to be honest, like, I've always maintained the stance that we already know a lot of the stuff that CIG is going to do. They just said it so long ago now that we've forgotten. And when it comes to them implementing the features, we'll get them and then they'll massage them into place. So this is one of those topics. Obviously, he's used the buzzwords griefing and piracy. So one of the reasons why I'm actually clicking on this to watch it. Highly encourage you guys though to watch this in your own time outside the reaction stream, so that you can watch it in full and not have me be interrupting it every few minutes or providing commentary over the top. Okay, it also helps him out and supports his channel too. Let's find out how Star Citizen aims to beat griefing and allow for piracy.
Have you ever had a conversation about griefing? You'll find many of us are using the word to describe different things. For some, it's aggressive gameplay without any purpose other than ruining somebody else's fun. For others, it doesn't even exist in gaming because anything is fair play. And for many, it simply describes any aggressive gameplay that they don't expect at that moment. But who defines what a player should expect as they fly around space and visit different planets? And will players ever truly be safe if other players can use weapons anywhere they please? Armistice zones are removed, and we have to depend on in-game security to keep players in line? Star Citizen is seemingly making a huge gamble on a system based around PvE and PvP bounty hunting, prison systems, security infrastructures, and a deep reputation system to keep the civil players amongst one another and the more aggressive side to their own. But can it also...
That doesn't work for piracy though, because all those civil players, they're the ones with the money and we have to steal it from them. So we're like the junction. We're always at the junction of this, which is why like that line between griefing and piracy is all grey. Is what we call piracy, other people call griefing. We've been accused of griefing for many years now. That said, like, I don't really care what other people call us when it comes to being, like griefing and things like that, because at the end of the day, we are playing the game within the rules as best as we know them, until CIG decides to say, hey, stop doing that thing. You're breaking the rules. Well, we don't like what you're doing there. At which point we can try and argue with them, but it's their house, their rules.
Also solve problems like harassment and repetitive targeting. This is another Red Take supporter exclusive released in May to all YouTube and Patreon members. For regular higher quality coverage of Star Citizen's development, your referral code under each of our videos, live podcast access, and possibly more, all levels of support keep us doing what we're doing. For all you who already have, thank you for supporting my tomato talks.
Just thought of a point that he brought up there. Repeated attacks and harassment. This is actually a big issue, because I am a big proponent for emergent gameplay, org warfare, things like that. One of the things that I want the squad to do was corporate privateering, and we'll probably look at doing it still, but because we're within our own alliance now, the Mongrel Horde, that's looking less likely. It depends on, like who's hiring us and how much we're getting hired for at that point. But harassment, targeted harassment, what's the difference between targeted harassment and warfare? Consent? Does the other side have to consent to war? Because if they have to consent to war, then do they consent to piracy? These are actual issues that CIG is going to have to address, and a lot of players, depending on who you're talking to, piracy, we're not pirates, we're just murder hobos because we don't talk to the target anymore. We don't try and negotiate. Streamers, yes, you need to get their consent first. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. The idea though of warfare and targeted harassment being in the same train of thought. When we went to war against the overlords, for example, this was something that I had to think about. It's like, all right, what's targeted harassment? Well, technically what we're doing by going after these guys, finding out where they're at and then joining their server, that's targeted. That's a targeted attack. But we're at war with them, right? So how can you wage a war against another group and not do targeted attacks? And when does it go from being a targeted attack to harassment? How many times do we have to attack someone and for them to consider that it's harassment? This is why defining an end state to a war is really important, and making it clear to those who you're waging against when you make your first strike what that end state actually is, and give them the ability to end it quickly. For us, you know, like we're still at war with Frontier Consolidated, for example. We haven't attacked them though in close to 2 years, nearly 3. There's a reason for that. They don't consider us at war with them though. They're pretending that it's not a thing and, you know, just sweeping it under the rug. But I put in a stop for our attacks on them because what we were doing would be considered targeted harassment from a certain perspective, which is shit. How do you wage a war against another organization who doesn't want to wage a war against you, who doesn't want to fight back, and will sit there and will be more than willing to use the customer support system to fight you? And whilst they may say, hey, we're not going to do that, you don't know. Like, there's so many members. So FC won the war is what you're saying? No, they didn't. It's gone cold. You see, we're waiting because it's easier for somebody to say, hey, they're doing targeted harassment when everybody's isolated in fishbowls, all the separate servers. Like, if they notice our names on a server and they jump and we go to follow them, CIG has said that is targeted harassment, which is bullshit, because it's like, well, we're at fucking war with them. They've jumped servers. We have the ability to follow them. Why wouldn't we? You know, we want to have an effect on them. We want to bring them to the negotiation table so that they actually capitulate to our demands. It's either that or outright destruction, which is impossible in a video game, or nearly impossible. That's when you got to start considering the ramifications of how far you push. But that's the thing, it's like in Star Citizen, the game isn't ready yet for a lot of the stuff that we want to do. And sometimes we have to accept that. Sometimes we just have to sit there and wait. We're waiting for server meshing because it's going to be harder for CIG to pin us for targeted harassment in a server meshed environment. Oh, you guys are following them across servers. Well, that's the way that you fucking built your environment. Of course we're going to follow them. Like, to us, it's just the gameplay space, right? And that's a problem that we've got in the current state of the game. That's why we haven't attacked them in so long. Like, targets of opportunity, if we happen to come across them, yeah, we'll hit them. But like, we have the capabilities, we have the facilities to join on their servers at any time of our choosing and attack them. We know when their events are running, who are running their events. And we can do that if we really wanted to, but then we're taking a risk of ending up getting vacations, right? There's examples out there of this stuff already happening. And I'd be a pretty shit leader if I kept putting my members in that position where I was like, hey guys, we're going to go do this, and then they get their accounts banned. They get a vacation from the game. Sure, they get to make the decision, but then I get to decide who's in my org. And if people aren't going to support what the org is doing, why are they even there, right? It's not indiscreet. What is the start point for this war? The start point for this war was actually during the Overlords War, where we attempted to pressure them into negotiating and breaking ties with the Overlords. And it just ended up being, nah, we're not doing it. All right, well then, guess we got to go to war with you guys too. Beat the shit out of the Overlords, but these guys are still around, right? And because I said that we're going to war, the war is still going, just gone cold, waiting for the right time so that we can light the fires, start hammering the point. I know, like, lots of members in Mongrel Squad don't like the fact that we're still at war. They're like, why don't you just end it? Nobody really cares. It's like, I fucking care. The entire point of the negotiations was that these guys were trying to get us to not attack their community events, right? And we weren't aware at the time, but the only time that they do their major events is community events. So they were essentially trying to negotiate for an agreement that we just wouldn't attack them. And I suspected that was the case, which is why I pushed for the negotiations that I did. It was 30 million credits. I was like, pay us 30 million credits and we'll go back to leaving you alone for a patch cycle. Or break ties with the Overlords and 15 million credits. You got a time limit on that one though. Or it's just war. What they've done is they've just ignored it because they don't have the capacity, the mentality, or the desire to, you know, fight back against us in a way to where they're pursuing us. So if we want to win this war, we have to pursue them. And when does it become targeted harassment? The war that we're in with Frontier Consolidated is still on. The war is cold, but it hasn't ended. Some members are like, why don't you end it? It's like, our reputation is being attacked. You may not see it that way, but our reputation has been attacked and we have to defend it. These guys attempted to treat us like we're idiots by negotiating for a deal where we just wouldn't be able to attack them. Because once I put spies in there, they found out, yes, you were right, they only run community events. They don't do any events outside of their community events. Well, the war hasn't concluded yet. The Loud Guns won the war by framing it as targeted harassment. You still haven't addressed this. Are your fucking ears painted on? I've literally been talking about this for the last 10 minutes. Haven't attacked them in 2 years. Yeah, it's gone cold. Like, do you not understand what that is? No, he's not using the terms of service to defend himself against us. He could, his org could. I honestly don't think Loud Guns would do that, but there's members within his board of his bloody council or whatever. Yeah, but that's not him, that's CIG. You see, I'm not stupid enough to keep doing something that's going to get me banned, and we're not doing targeted attacks. If we come across them randomly, then yeah, we'll take the opportunity. But we have the capability to attack every single one of their events if we want to, and I'm choosing not to do it to reduce any sort of rule lawyering that they may try and use against us, because they weren't interested in paying the 30 million. And yes, we do have the spies. They report back to us frequently. And the thing about that is that we're just collecting data and waiting. We're waiting for the game to catch up, because that's the main problem that CIG is dealing with at the moment. Something that you guys at GrieferNet need to learn. Not ready for yet. Planned for, but not ready. If you listen to CIG on that front, you wouldn't be getting these fucking vacations. You just gotta wait. Server meshing, targeted harassment. Oh, you guys, we're at war with them. We've given them conditions of how this war ends, which I'll be updating when we get server meshing. But right now, if we started going as hard as we were at the start of the war, and we had maintained that, you guys would be hearing about Mongrel Squad members getting bans. Alright? As the leader of my organization, I am taking responsibility to ensure that my members don't end up in a position where they can't play the game that they purchased money for. Yes, they are their own people. They can make decisions for themselves. They wanted to attack them, I wouldn't stop them. But at the same time, as an organization, I'm the one in charge of it. I make the decisions for it. And as an organization, we don't go out of our way to attack their event yet. We've allowed the war to go cold so that we can't have rule lawyering used against us. Because I don't want, yes, Lever, I make you play Star Citizen. I already put you in enough pain. But I don't want to give fucking Care Bears the ammunition to hurt us in a way that we can't retaliate. Never want to do that. And that's how they're fucking doing it. Because they are mass reporting, and CIG is listening, as much as they say that they don't. We all know this, and it's shit, but I'm not going to give Care Bears the ammunition to hurt us, so I'm going to fucking play the long game. I'm going to play smart. And then that way, when we get server meshing, they can't argue with the fact that this is the game. There's a lesson in what you've just said there, Dispatcher, too. Something that I don't think you guys are paying attention to. Anyway, we're getting way off topic. We need to continue on with this. I want to hear about how Star Citizen aims to beat griefing and allow for piracy, because as we all know, the current state of things, right? The current state of things, it doesn't look like that. The way that you beat griefing is mass reporting.
A very divisive and always evolving part of Star Citizen is its balance between simulation and full-on game. It needs to be both to accomplish its goals of being a space sim, but also maintaining a player base that can support it. Where many of those sim elements come in are with things like the cargo system, requiring players to physically locate and transport anything they want to move in the game, or life support on ships not being able to cover more than the rated crew count at any given time. Your ability to lose everything you're carrying when you die, or whether your ship thrusters are malfunctioning due to continued overuse and wear and tear. Chief amongst these specific design decisions is essentially allowing the game to be full PvP. Now, while this sounds scary at first, at its core it boils down to incentivizing star systems in local areas to operate as you'd expect. But once you're in those areas, things are more reliable.
There's a problem that I have with this take, and it's fucking rampant throughout this community. It's the equation of PvP equals combat. That is not the case. PvP does not equal combat. PvP is player versus player. Racing is PvP, right? Playing poker is PvP. Chess is PvP. It can be against an AI opponent, but there was a time when chess wasn't. You had to have another person there. PvP is just a player encounter, in my honest opinion. How that goes is up to the players. Exactly. But with the common equation that's used is that PvP equals combat. Not the case. And that's the problem that I have with that take when they talk about PvP. And like, PvP is scary. PvP is also racing. How the fuck is that scary? Lever, it's in game, so it's okay. Like, if that was real life, then yes, you should be terrified. I guess we should keep watching, but yeah, I don't like the equation of PvP, like combat encounters only being marketed as PvP. This is something that the developers are also guilty of to. And I don't think Space Tomato is doing it to be malicious or anything. It's just a colloquial term within the community that is used incorrectly to describe combat encounters. Because the way that the game's supposed to go, doesn't matter if it's a player or an AI, a combat encounter is exactly a combat encounter.
Stanton, for example, our current star system. While this system is flourishing in population and economic status, it's also teeming with piracy and danger. It's not meant to be a beginner-friendly system exactly, in which every area feels safe and secure. Compare that to a paradise tourist system like Ellis. This system features flourishing economies on its inner planets, but sees lower crime rates. And then there's the frontier system of Pyro, which we know is coming pretty soon. This one obviously sees a very low economic potential, but has extreme danger in those same areas. After looking at the balances of these statistics, you start to get an idea of where you might live as a more risk-averse player. And in order to help silo these systems into the gameplay that people are looking for, you put the more highly rewarded content in the more riskier areas. And this is backed by the simulation in development, which I covered earlier this year. Probability volumes are large areas around each point of interest that define your likelihood to run into an AI pirate, hauler, or security member.
See this here that we're all looking at, like this graph here, like was it hauler or industrialist, security, and pirate. And this is focused on Port Olisar. If you can't read that, that's Port Olisar. So you got the industrialists or the cargo haulers and all that going into the system, or lawful players that aren't security. And then the larger security presence there means that there's a lower criminal presence, right? We already experienced this based on player experience, so AI isn't even involved in this. But when you look at different outposts, we see a surge in hauler activity or player activity trying to make money. You see a surge in piracy activity, right? The thing that we're missing though is the rise in security presence, and that's because we're all on different fish bowls at the moment, right? The security orgs could hang around these same outposts and wait, and they might encounter pirates, but that's the same situation as what pirates are doing, where we go to these places and wait, and we might encounter a cargo hauler. But we're more likely to encounter a cargo hauler than we are security. And security is more likely to encounter those same cargo haulers than they are pirates. Until it becomes a hotbed of cargo hauler activity, in which case there's pirates there all the time. A good example of this would be like during the Slam Rush, or gasping weevil eggs being a big thing when we got in Wake of Disaster for the first time, where all the salvage yards became these hotbed of bloody activity. Problem is that players aren't encouraged enough to do the security side of things. And this is where CIG could facilitate that through analytics of player data. Players who are hanging around in certain areas, those who are hostile to others, or like those showing up in combat ships that attack cargo haulers. And people would go, oh, this is supposed to be the reputation system, but CIG can do this stuff on the back end as well. And then they could generate missions where players are encouraged to go and patrol outposts. Hey, the Microtech Security is going to pay you 10,000 credits every 10 minutes for the time that you spend at a outpost. Your job there is to defend it. If pirates show up or any hostile action happens there, you're expected to deal with it. And people go, oh, it's going to break the economy. Players receiving credits. Like, you can put it into an escrow system where the player doesn't get those credits unless, one, nothing bad happened, or two, when an attack did happen, they stopped it from progressing. So they destroyed the hostiles that were there. That's a problem that CIG hasn't focused on. This is something that they could be doing now. They don't need server meshing for that sort of system to work. These are the design issues that I talked about earlier in the previous reaction and rant that I made. That there are things, design decisions that CIG could be making to influence the development of the game so that players have more positive emergent experiences, but they don't do that because they're waiting for this sort of system, which is still fucked if I know when it's going to show up. Like, server meshing was supposed to be the milestone that was required before we'd get this. They'll probably get server meshing, so 4.0, and it'll be like a 1 or 2 patch, and we'll start seeing this being expanded upon. But I thought, like, when I saw this, I thought I'd bring that up and just explain to people, like, what they show there, we can experience now to a certain degree, but we don't have enough security organizations out there patrolling these outposts, doing the same thing that pirates do. Like that argument, oh, like it's boring for security guys to go out and do the patrolling and things like that. It's like, what the fuck do you think the pirates are doing? We hunt for targets. We're looking for them. We're looking for these guys to pirate. And that's what security forces should be doing too. If you're in a security org, you should be patrolling these outposts. And there are some that do that, but not frequently enough to be useful. and a lot of them aren't that great at combat yet. All right, let's keep this going.
Different locations will have different percentage chance per minute for each variable, and these probabilities can change over time as conditions shift, such as if a space station is blockaded or the price of goods or components at a location skyrockets. So wherever you are, both the star system you're in and the local area you're traversing should adequately communicate to you whether it's the kind of place you actually want to be. Todd Pappy, former Star Citizen Live director, lays this out in 2020 on Calling All Devs.
You have to think about how different solar systems are connected to each other. Stanton is a somewhat lawful system. It's got UEE versus Pyro is supposed to be a very unlawful system. I would start there. So they started, what system should I be in? What system do I want to go to? And
if I'm in Terra, I probably should feel pretty safe. If I'm in Pyro, I should be looking over my shoulder.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. So, and in Stanton, we still want there to be areas for people to look for PvP. We still want there to be areas that are mostly geared toward PvE. So it will really just depend on kind of how the player goes about looking for them.
This gives the game control over mission payouts, the price of services, what kind of missions are spawning, and the overall cohesion of your experience. It also liberates players from rules that otherwise stop sandbox gameplay. Access to weapons and tools in all areas means player-staged death matches, combat races, role-playing events, machinima, and general debauchery with your friends. It lets players do what they want and find the right place in the game that allows it, oftentimes leading to players finding others a bit more like-minded, and enticing them to take opportunities in areas that are leaning in the opposite direction. It also means the bounty hunter may be the best profession in the game. You're essentially paid to go out and either subdue or completely destroy the people who are actually making other people's days worse. These could be the traditional pirates that are stealing goods, extorting traders, and throwing asteroids at planets. Or it could be the actual griefers repeatedly pad-ramming new players who haven't even learned how to take off yet. Allowing for all systems to work in all areas means higher-ranking bounty hunters, or even bounty hunters on specific jobs, can receive a weapons permission in the city when nobody else has them, allowing for gameplay advantages and different experiences for players based on who they focus on playing as and where they build up their reputation.
Piracy is throwing asteroids at planets? Fuck, if we could do it, we would. Base raid. We're going to raid this base. We'll initiate with an asteroid, and then we'll land troops on where you pick through the rubble. I don't know if he's going to talk about this though, but there is something that what he's talked about there, like bounty hunters potentially getting a license that allows them to carry a weapon into the cities. That doesn't mean that other players won't be able to do it either without the license, right? CIG has talked about the other side of it where you can smuggle a weapon in and be walking around in a soft armistice zone with a concealed weapon, because the ability to carry a weapon on you in an area where everybody else is disarmed empowers you beyond what everybody else is capable of, right? And because we're in a video game, people are going to do dumb shit. So somebody may be willing to grind the bounty hunter rep to get to the point where they can have that license, and then they go and assassinate a player that is hidden within, that never leaves those armistice zones where you're not allowed to have weapons. Some players will do it, and that's emergent gameplay. Like, you know, build the rep, get the ability, go and do the hit. You'll take the rep hit, lose the ability to have the weapons license in, you know, armistice zones, whatever, we achieve the goal. You know, if Death of a Spaceman, if CIG pursues it in the direction that they plan on doing it, it may be one of those things where it's like, all right, an assassin group, you know, is contracted to force somebody to have to go to their next of kin. They kill it enough that it goes to their next of kin. Right, so you get an assassin group, they all have alt accounts, they build up a bounty hunter account to being able to do the assassin mission, or like be able to carry weapons inside of armistice zones. Once they've got that, pop old mate, once, twice, the amount of times it takes until they have to reset to next of kin, job done. I'm looking forward to that sort of shit. I want that sort of shit to happen. But we got to get there first. Honestly, I think bounty hunting gameplay has been getting shafted a lot. Like CIG's literally just going, okay, we've got, and it's good enough for now. Now we'll worry about everything else. Because there's a lot of mechanics that bounty hunters will use that I want to use as a pirate. And I know we'll get to use them too.
Having a fully PvP capable game that is segmented out in different spaces of various safety depends heavily on two different things for enforcement: security systems and reputation. Since we've already kind of gotten into it, first, we're going to talk about reputation. In Star Citizen, players currently rely on reputation with factions for some level of progression when running missions. But the more important responsibility of the system is one that only just began with the Alpha 3.23 patch: law enforcement. If you don't know about the pseudo perma-character death system Star Citizen wants to use, I have a pretty old video covering it if you're interested. I really need to update that video. This game is meant to have varying levels of consequences that kinda warn you to stop messing around. General damage, bleeding, and eventually injuries like cracked bones are the first line. Besides that, you have reputation hits, crime stats, losing your ship, and eventually the prison system that will literally lock you up for hours. And then if you still haven't gotten it, you can always die, and eventually permanently lose your character. This will be very hard to do, but it is a possibility. So threatening players with lethal force is meant to be just one deterrent to players who find themselves in the wrong system. Your reputation with any faction in the game will define how they respond to you. They may offer you missions and discounts, give you access to unique stores and separate locations in the game, simply grant you access to their fuel and repair services, actively turn away your business, or all out attack you on site. Various behaviors and reactions have been in development for the AI teams, and they are now slowly rolling out to give factions more options when coming across players they are either allies or enemies with. So when you continue causing trouble for cargo haulers in the area, stealing, extorting, and even attacking civilians, your reputation with local law enforcement, the UEE, and possibly even the Bounty Hunters Guild will drop. And you may hack away your crime stat for immediate relief, but that reputation will stick. And at some point, you'll simply never be able to approach the local cities or space stations in the area without much more additional effort, basically locking you out of locations and opportunities. You may think the AI in the game sucks and can't stop you, but when the game does run well, I find the devs seem to spend more effort toning the AI down rather than up. And on the other side of the law, that bounty hunter who's hunting you on foot because maybe you were able to sneak into a location or city through underground tunnels and past security, that bounty hunter has high enough reputation with both the local security firm and the Bounty Hunters Guild that they've unlocked the perk of using weapons in the city. The system can empower and limit players for both gameplay and balance purposes, providing rewards, missions, secret access, and even a bounty on your head if you step too far out of line. And most importantly, reputation acts as the player tracking system. Known as Hex internally, originally developed by Turbulent Studios, now a part of CIG. This ability to track players is crucial to the security systems that ultimately rebuff bad behavior.
I still wonder if he's going to mention CIG's intent of letting players sneak weapons in. Holy shit, Amiro, you're really optimistic. How to change a heart, mate. Yeah, like, as I said before, whilst CIG wants to structure the game where you're supposed to take FPS weapons into certain areas or use FPS weapons in certain areas, they also said that you'll be able to sneak weapons in to areas where you're not supposed to have weapons. I don't know, this seems like a bit like he's trying to sell cope for PvE players or like industrialist players who aren't interested in combat. I'm interested to see if he points it out at all.
And these security systems are already in-game to some extent, and players are free to test them. As an example, players currently can see charges pressed on them for any crime they commit in monitored space, unless they fly to the local comm array, EVA inside, and disable the system, at which point anyone can rampage in the local area with no repercussions. Comm arrays are just one of several systems that are supposed to enforce some sort of safety in the game. Another one that can be seen but is not entirely active is the customs checkpoints in all the cities. These areas are meant to be kind of like the contraband scans that you get from ships when you're in space around the stations, making sure players don't have weapons or items that aren't allowed in that space. This space at that point being the cities. This is because armistice zones, these safe zones that protect locations from people pulling out their weapons, will also be going soon. And we've seen this discussed and confirmed a couple of times over the years, again by Todd Pappy.
Yeah, I know Chris is a big proponent of real world, of intrinsic things that are as they should be in the universe if it were live. And a magical zone that prevents you from pulling your gun out of your holster isn't indicative of what we want to do.
No, but you want to know that certain areas are safe. So, and when you go into Art Corp or you go into these areas, there is there's security areas. So the idea would be that you need to holster your weapon, or you need to basically drop off your weapon there, so that you're not bringing in something that somebody else.
The prison and jail system is another part of this security network. While jail seems to be more focused on the bounty hunting profession and likely won't be a place actual players end up much, the prison acts as a detention center in which players can escape via a long platforming session, after which they still need to find a way to get off the moon's surface, or players can work off their sentence in the mines, taking part in its local economy, finding loot, and even continuing their life of crime. Eventually,
I forgot to mention the cartel, purchasing merits, the credits. If you guys are interested and you need to get out of prison, the Merrick's cartel's got you. You can always visit our Discord and reach out to them there.
this will also be a place only specific missions can be acquired and specific mission givers will be found. And hopefully also the system will be vastly improved, because as it is now, the prison system is simply not ready for what they're trying to set up here. But it's not just this one prison. Many systems will have local laws, listed misdemeanors and felonies that are specific to their government. Again, going back to the idea that players will want to find a place that fits their style, danger level, and desired gameplay. The overall law system makes factions make more sense, adds variety to gameplay, and also, they hope, can combat griefing to some effective extent.
Yeah. When we go to Nyx, or when we go to Pyro, or even Vandal systems or something like that, the idea is that with this law system, it allows us to basically set laws at a solar system level, and then from there we have zones that can basically increase or decrease what is viewed as legal in that area.
Yeah, obviously, there's a pretty healthy player versus player community and stuff, and you don't want to necessarily stifle that with too much automation and protection, but at the same time, we do want to safeguard a reasonable play experience for the majority of the community and stuff. So
I mean, for the average player, like if somebody's griefing, then yeah, we want to protect that other person's experience as well.
No.
All of these systems are pretty interesting purely from the gameplay impact perspective. Locations like derelict outposts, distribution centers, abandoned space stations, pirate space stations, cities, and towns were all made with this sliding scale of how much risk you want to encounter in mind. Those abandoned space stations, security outposts, and drug labs are all purpose-built hotspots for combat and PvP. While PvP and aggressive activity are possible everywhere, Star Citizen will try to push it into these distinct areas, preferably to develop the areas in which they can ensure that likely won't happen. It doesn't mean players get a no danger guarantee, but it does mean the game should remain predictable to some extent when you travel, which is no different from many other MMOs out there. It's just a matter of how it's enforced and what it's trying to stop. Will this work? Nobody knows. There are other games that attempt systems kind of like this, such as World of Tanks with its team killing mechanic and EVE with its low, medium, and high security areas. But many games that have gone this route don't have as many underlying systems to use. A long development cycle, while it's been a bit of a pain, has given CIG the ability to purpose build a lot of these pieces of the game engine, and we are only now starting to see if they will all work together to make the game work. Undoubtedly, there will be edge cases, malfunctions, and overall holes in the system. But I do think this could be adequate in deterring enough foul gameplay outside of what the game intends in terms of PvP, as well as expanding the variety of gameplay for players in different star systems and professions. If all of this can be implemented, made fun, and positively impact the experiences of players in the game, I'll consider it a success. And if you'd like to see if that happens, consider subscribing here for more updates on the development of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. I'd like to thank you again for watching this video. It was released earlier in the year as a supporter exclusive. Our series of YouTube channels and streams are a family endeavor with me and my wife, and our supporters are how we continue to do what we do. So if you'd like to join them in monthly exclusives, live podcast access, referral code randomizer access, and helping to keep this going, you can become a member down below or on Patreon. You can also check out our second YouTube channel for more long-form content if that's your thing. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.
But we managed to get through it. That was a pretty good video, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie. Seems like that video needs to be shared a lot more as a reminder, although there is little snippets of information that he's kind of missed, but not like it's gonna break the community. Like the ability to take or sneak weapons into areas where you're not supposed to. Yeah, and this video is actually from May. even though he released it 3 days ago. He actually put this, or made this video available to his members back in May. So for us to be seeing it now, I think this would have got a lot more traction back in May if he'd released it to the public, but that's just my opinion. But the way that CIG plans on handling griefing, like, there's going to become a point where CIG will have to take the stance in front of the community and say, we now have the systems in place for you guys to deal with issues in game, like the terms for griefing. Like, you're going to be told a lot that that's just the gameplay, that's just the game, get used to it. Unfortunately, we don't have that now, and CIG has unfortunately set a precedence amongst the community that if you want to attack a player outside the gameplay space, you can do that through customer support, by mass reporting and all that. And you've got to go and attempt to counter it, but at the same time, it is CIG's house. So if they turn around and tell you to stop doing something, you got to listen and be patient. That's probably the worst part about all of this, is you got to be patient. Why the state of the war that we have with Frontier Consolidated has gone cold. We're being patient, we're waiting for the right time, or what we believe is the right time, and then it's fucking on. Patience is a basic requirement for Star Citizen in any case. Yes, you're right there, Commander Najib. It is 100%. Being a glutton for punishment means that you're a patient person, which isn't right, but some of the examples people use is mass events being attacked, and I think it's expected that if you attack 40 people, 35 are probably entitled to report you if it's a proper grief, not just something tame. What's a proper grief? Because if you talk to a lot of the people that were pirated, we've griefed them. But if you talk to CIG, we pirated them. Like, I'm interested in the term of proper grief. Is there an improper grief? I'm just waiting to see if Ark responds. He's probably typing it out now. Like the 30v30 event, maybe. I wouldn't say that was griefed. So that tank battle there, it's a shitty thing to attack an event like that, but I wouldn't say that they were griefing it. The motivations behind attacking it obviously is notoriety. Like, let's not try and pretend that they were doing it because they were trying to be the space terrorists. They attacked a visible event for notoriety. 100% what they did. That said, those people in those tanks that were all there for combat, instead of turning around and fighting back, because there was more than enough of them there to get into ships and kick the shit out of these guys, they all sat around like stunned mullets. Like, why were they doing that tank battle, that tank event? Well, gameplay, show what it looks like having a massive tank battle. They had the opportunity to show, like, we were trying to do this tank battle and then we got interrupted, so we went and kicked the shit out of those guys, and then we went back to doing a tank battle. Like, the event's taken as long as they do, that is part of the risk, because those guys showing up is just one risk that you take when you do an event. Yeah, server crashed anyway. But that server could have crashed without the attack happening too. And then what? Like, if you run an event in the game and you get attacked, that should be part of your strategy of dealing with problems. Like, what can you control within the gameplay space? You can control your security. So take those measures. You know, what would I consider proper griefing? That's a question that I'm just asking myself now. What would I consider proper griefing? I would say performing attacks with no material objective against somebody who has no real value to them other than being used as a plaything for your enjoyment. So pad ramming a ship that has 40 people on it, say. Pad ramming a ship that has 40 people on it. What happens if I'm contracted to assassinate one of them and they don't care how it's done? Like, do I really need to go in there and just assassinate one person? Or can I get away with just destroying the entire ship? But now, pad ramming is a breach of the rules. Part of the problem is that the reason why pad ramming is against terms of service right now is that there is no adequate defense against it. But CIG are taking measures to prevent that sort of thing from happening, right? Like, we all spawn in hangars. That's not only an optimization thing, it's also to reduce the opportunities for somebody pad ramming. You know, like, a really good example of pad ramming being griefing is back when we had Port Olisar and we just got the Hammerhead. I remember watching at Port Olisar, you could only spawn your ships on the landing pads. They had Grimhex and Port Olisar. Anybody that was at Port Olisar on this one server couldn't leave the station because somebody was in their Hammerhead, and every time a ship would spawn, they'd ram the ship off. They weren't charging credits. They were just doing it because they could, doing it to be a massive dick. But what you've claimed as griefing, I've just said is an attack. It's a subjective topic. Like, should people not report it? Like, I'm not saying people shouldn't report things to customer service. They believe there's a problem, take it up with the game masters, right? Go and talk to them about it. The problem though that we have is that has been taken to excess. Like what somebody calls griefing, another person calls gameplay. And it comes down to CIG adjudicating on that. That's the problem that we've got. And where it becomes a bigger problem for us is that the game hasn't been finished being made. So the systems that are supposed to be in place to make attacking another group more difficult or more costly performant enough to do the job. Excessive griefing. What's the difference between excessive griefing and griefing? Like, it's the same problem that I have with targeted harassment and warfare. If we're at war with another organization and I'm constantly attacking it, is it targeted harassment or am I at war? What if they don't want to be at war? I've given them terms they don't accept. All right then, well, I'm going to attack you until you come back to the negotiation table. Is that targeted harassment or warfare? Am I griefing them or am I attacking them? I have my opinion on it. They'll have their opinion on it. And that's CIG's job to adjudicate on that scenario, and where they come down and they say to the group, hey, either those guys are 100% allowed to do that and you guys need to deal with that problem in game, or they come back to us and they go, hey, you need to dial it back. All right, they're not interested in fighting you guys, let it go. But I've seen CIG try and tell somebody that what they were doing was excessive griefing, and I proved that it wasn't. Like, I've been in this position before and I've been able to prove that it wasn't excessive griefing. CIG just used the term to hand out a warning. Yes, the Carrick medbed. Both parties were consenting to the actions, they just couldn't communicate. But when they did communicate afterwards, it was like, no, I was 100% on board with it, I was okay with it. The warning was for excessive griefing. How can you be excessively griefing someone if they're okay with it? Has CIG put a limit on how many times you can kill someone? If so, what is it? And why haven't we been told? The problem. So have I. That's why I looked into it, because I'm like, this is bullshit. Captain Dirty got in trouble for something that I've done heaps of times. I've even done it on stream. I did it against Salty Mike's crew and Mic Drop. Made a video about it and everything. One screenshot gets shared on Reddit and like, Captain Dirty's getting a warning. That was bullshit. That's the problem though, is like the definitions that CIG uses. You're going to say something is excessive, then that means that you have a unit of measure to indicate what excessive is and what isn't excessive. And if it just is as simple as we decide on a case-by-case basis, then it's like, all right, you guys decide on a case-by-case basis, which is apparently the way that it is right now. Right? You know, that's why if you get a warning from CIG, just listen. 100%. Like, having an in-game reporting system and an appeal system should be 100% things that CIG bring into the game, so that we're able to, like, if somebody tries to abuse the reporting system, we can defend ourselves. We've done a lot of things to other players that we've heard of other people being reported for, right? We've done the same things. We haven't received warnings. Why? Maybe, just maybe, reputation matters. Having a clear-cut goal matters. Having an end state matters. Communicating that clearly matters. You have people who will exploit, take advantage of systems, cheat, stream snipe, and then cry about being brigaded as they're in the process of doing something against terms of service. Isn't that like cry bullying? There's lots of cry bullying. Like, that would be a series of examples of that. I don't get it. How this can always be such a big topic to be getting attacked. Not a PvP, but anyways, it's something fresh, something unique to get attacked by another player, for example, and this is part of an adventure, which is rare in my opinion. Manticore, part of the problem is that there's a significant portion of this community that have never been in the type of game environment that we're in right now. And they believe that because all they want to do is play the game their way, where like they're in their own little lane, not affecting the rest of the world other than making numbers go big in their wallet, or like cruising the stars taking screenshots, that nobody else should interfere with them. That's what they believe. They believe that they should be able to play the game without any sort of interference or external interference at all. They're okay with the AI doing it to them because the AI is stupid and it's not another player getting a one-up on them. I agree, Manticore, 100%. They're thinking of the wrong game. They didn't read the story on the box before they bought. The player base is in for a rude awakening. It's one of the reasons why I'm so looking forward to server meshing, right? I want server meshing so bad because we start getting away from this almost a nanny state where CIG is micromanaging player interactions. And I know it looks like that CIG is like, that's not going to happen and that CIG are going to get worse. Honestly, it's just one of those things, guys, where it's like, right now CIG just has to intervene because the systems haven't been put in yet. Yeah, I will not dox you if they get butthurt they lost an encounter. Well, that's a different problem though, Autastic. Here's the thing is like, there's the actions that you take in-game. Literally seen a video of griefing at mid-stream snipe, and then they're bitching in the Discord while they're stream sniping about being brigaded in reports. Yeah, seen videos like that too. We've got on the topic of griefing streams, griefing and piracy and org warfare. So everyone knows my stance on this. Like for piracy, good piracy is where you do shipboardings. That's the way I see it. Scooping cargo, destroying ships and scooping the cargo. You can do that if that's what you want to do. You know, more power to you. Not my thing. That said though, like I'm all about having options. And if I was contracted to assassinate somebody in the middle of a bloody 890 jump, for example, there's 40 people there and I only needed to kill one of them. Depending on the criteria, warping the ship may be the better option. Maybe they want it to be known. Maybe they want it to have impact. Maybe they want it to be hidden. We don't want them to know that we were killing them. But you wouldn't pad ram them and risk your account for the job payout though, would you? In the current state, no. But that doesn't mean that pad ramming is going to be off the table forever. Like, that's what I mean about the game mechanics not being able to support the intended gameplay. Pad ramming ships shouldn't be a thing, not because CIG says it's not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing because if you are approaching a station at a rapid rate of knots, the station turret should all be bloody looking at you. You should be getting contacted by the ATC to tell you that you're exceeding the speed limit, and if you don't comply, they're about to destroy your ship. Like, that's the sort of thing that should happen. But it's not ready yet. The game's not in that position yet. The fucking turrets struggle just to hit you when you're stationary at times. And that's something that a lot of people don't seem to understand, is like, these hard armistice zones are going away. We literally just watched a video where Space Tomato's talking about it. The systems aren't ready yet, so what does CIG do? They have to deal with the problem now. They can't just let players... Unfortunately, we can't run rampant right now because fucking we're all bloody gremlins that like to bloody break the game in ways that CIG doesn't want us to, or do things that CIG doesn't want us to do yet. So they've got to come in and play game master and moderate and things like that. The only problem that I have with all of it is that it's set a precedence that if you do this one action, you can hurt somebody outside the game. That's because all the PvPers were doing the bloody pad ramming to each other. Bloody the people who were fighting for those tickets, man, it was ruthless. And like, everybody understood the stakes and nobody cared as long as they got it. And the devs were cool with it because, you know, if somebody started complaining about it, then maybe they would have addressed it. Murdering 40 people is probably a week in jail IRL time, right? Yeah, sure. There's a point that Autastic brings up. I think what bugs me more than anything is the hypocrisy. Like, it seems like people on both sides want to have their cake and eat it too. PvEs want to be left alone and play an MMO by themselves, and people like GNet want to break the rules but not be held to account for breaking the rules. The problem is that CIG's marketed the game like that. There's a famous clip, I don't have it handy, but there's a famous clip where Chris Roberts says you don't need to engage in PvP if you don't want to. You only want to do PvE, you can do that. You don't have to do PvP if you don't want to. And it is brought up every fucking time on Spectrum. Every time you bring up it's a PvP game, they kept dropping that one clip, and it's like, well, if you watch the whole clip, there's actually more to it. Ban evasion? As long as ban evasion isn't a topic that's enforced, then CIG is by definition advocating for rules to be broken so long as you pay for another account. Alright, before you guys go down this route of having your little spat about stuff that you guys do to each other in game, I'm gonna cut you off there. Like, Dispatcher, I know you're on a holiday, mate, and can't go and track down Ark in-game, but this is not the place to be arguing. Like, ban evasion is a problem, one that CIG needs to address, and to be honest, I think they don't feel like they're in the position where they should be doing it yet, which is kind of a problem. Like, we all have to keep reminding ourselves, we don't have a fucking game yet, right? Like, we just don't have a game. So, like, things are going to be broken, things are going to be missing, CIG is going to be second guessing themselves when it comes to certain actions. If it was a finished game, they would have their systems in place. It would be like, all right, yeah. Oh, you got pad rammed? Well, where did you get pad rammed at? Oh, you're at a derelict outpost where there were no turrets. Okay, sucks to be you, mate. Oh, you got pad rammed? Wait a second, you're in terror? At a station? In high security? We'll go check the turrets to make sure, to find out why they weren't working. Right? There'll be a time when this shit won't matter that we're all worrying about right now. That is my understanding of it too, Autastic. But one day we shouldn't need to worry about that even. Shooting ships, pad ramming ships. Like, as far as I'm concerned, pad ramming is a viable tactic. If you're at a station, you blockaded it, somebody's trying to do a combat bloody resupply in the middle of the fight and they're doing a cheeky landing on a pad and they're bloody repairing, rearming, refueling. My ship's all types of fucked up and I see you, right? I've got no missiles left, I'm almost dead, got a crime stat and I've got to call it for the night anyway. I become the missile, alright? I am the size 12 torpedo that's going to take you down. Right now though, can't do that. Unfortunate, but one day that will be allowed because there's an entire chain of thought there. I'm not doing it to be a dick. It is a tactical decision. But as I was talking about before, there is an example of pad ramming that I've seen where it is just somebody being a dick for the sake of being a dick, preventing anybody from being able to leave a station. Port Olisar, a hammerhead knocking every single ship off the pads. Funny as fuck to watch, but every single person at that station was raging. Like, just change server regions for a couple of minutes and then go back. You'll be right. Exactly, Soriel. An exposed landing pad should be heavily defended, but never on the home plate, so safe, nah. Planned for, but not yet implemented. We've got to wait. That's it. That's reality. That's what we have to accept. Right now. Game's still being made. One day, we'll have our thing. Did you depopulate the game? Did you drive players away? Well, I hope they don't look at the Mongrel Squad YouTube comments, because according to that, we've driven lots of players away. Fucking hell. I get what you mean, but at the same time, it's like, that's a case-by-case basis, and that's CIG's measuring stick. What do they mean depopulate the game? There's times, and there's a reason, one of the reasons why we don't talk in global chat is that if people recognize our names, they'll jump servers. Is that us depopulating the server purely by existing? It shouldn't. That's because they're worried about you following them to the toilet and stealing their wallet, Soriel. Figured if they're nice, you won't do it. You only do it to the mean ones. Drama is content, 100%. Keeps the players in the game, yes. As long as people actually want to be involved in it. And that's the problem, is like some people just don't want to be, and there'll be one day where they'll sit there and complain to CIG and they'll be like, well, it all happened in game. The tools are there for you to deal with it. Good luck.